Hi BookTube, it's Amy, and I'm back again reading from the Anatomy of Bibliomania by Holbrook Jackson. We're on page 221 today, with its section titled In the Garden of Epicurus. If less esteemed by the more serious of students, not less wise are those of whom books are toys of leisure, pleasant companions, retreats from the boredom, arbors of content, feasts of fancy, cozy corners, pills to purge melancholy, hones for the wit, memorizers, magic casements, tickle palates, pastimes, sanctuaries, sedatives, palliatives, panis et circens for the rebellious soul, etc., as Thomas Gray, who wished ever to be lying on sofas reading eternal new novels by Cerebellin and Moverow. And our footnote is pointing us to Leigh Hunt's My Books collection of essays. Such are condemned by highbrows, and the strenuously purposeful folk who would have us always bargaining with God, life or destiny, for in the common saying, services rendered, as Frederick Harrison, who condemns for literary dandyism all pursuits of letters without social purpose or any systematic faith, and derides the use of books as sedatives, or as the means of exciting a mild intellectual titillation. He is all for bracing the mind to think, and not without good reasons, even if, in the meantime, he protests too much. There is a medium, even among books, a time for play as well as work, for relaxation as well for strenuousness. Thinkest because thou art cultured, there shall be no more cakes and ale? 'Tis as good sometimes to be loaf with books as to labour with them, to damn braces and bless relaxes, as Blake advises. And our footnote is pointing us to Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Cicero, as I remember, in an epistle to his dear friend Atticus, confessed that he was in love with idleness during his retirement, and he could not tear himself from it, and books aided and abetted the mood. I enjoy myself with my books, of which I have a good company at Antium. My interests, Alexander Smith declared, are divided between my geraniums and my books. And our footnote is pointing us to Dreamthorpe. And Edward Fitzgerald shamelessly dawdled with books, as ladies work to pass the time away, the partner of his idleness, as like as not his complete Voltaire. High amongst those who know how to relax stands our prince of dilettantes, Horace Walpole. He lived in Epicurean ease and made reading one of the instruments of his coziness, preserving his sensations, impressions, fancies, in nearly 4,000 letters. Gossiping gazettes, he called them, to his friends. Historian, gossip, printer, poet, antiquary, this virtuoso was as book-born as he was well-born, and he read for dalliance, to gratify his whim, his taste, or his malice. Reading was the final decoration to his days. He distilled his books into life, and his life into books. When he was not peering at the world through the window of art, he was peeping at it through the keyhole of letters. The story of Fantian in the Metamorphoses was a picture of his beloved Twickenham. And we've got a line, and it looks like Latin there, which is repeated in English directly after. So we'll just read the English here. Mount Richmond burns, parched is Petersham. Parnisca's biceps, dry is Pope's grot. The nymphs of Clivenden are burning to Blackmore's. Their faces are already as glowing as a cinder. Census is changed into a swan. My goldfishes are almost molten. And our footnote directing us to Walpole, to George Montagu, letters. He enjoyed life and laughs at it, and he is no miser of laughter. I desire to die when I have nobody left to laugh with me, he tells George Montagu. My dandy Democritus has never seen or heard any serious things that were not ridiculous. Jesuits, Methodists, philosophers, politicians, the hypocrite Rousseau, the scoffer Voltaire, the encyclopedists, the Humes, the Lyttletons, the Grenvilles, the atheist tyrant of Prussia, and the mountebank of history, Mr. Pitt, are all to him but impostors in their various ways, fame or interest their object, and he regards the ploughman who reads his almanac and believes the stars so many farthing candles as wiser and more rational and honester than any of them. Oh, he cries, I am sick of visions and systems, for he sees in them no more than an eternal recurrence of things that shove one another aside to reappear like the figures in a moving picture. As he sees more of the world, Rabelais brightens up to him, teaching him to laugh at it all rather than hate it, and in that Histoire philosophique et politique du commerce des deux Indes, writ by the Abbé Raynal, which the Parliament of Paris condemned to be burnt and its author imprisoned, he found a cosmography much to his liking. It tells one everything in the world, how to make conquests, invasions, blunders, settlements, bankruptcies, fortunes, etc. Tells you the natural and historical history of all nations. Talks commerce, navigation, tea, coffee, China, mines, salt, spices, of the Portuguese, English, French, Dutch, Danes, Spaniards, Arab caravans, Persians, Indians, and the King of Prussia, of Labordanus, Dupleix, and Admiral Sanders, of rice and women that dance naked, of camels, ginghams, and muslin, of millions and millions of livres, pounds, rupees, cowries, of iron cables, and circassians, women of law and the Mississippi, and against all governments and religions, such a largess in the first 2 volumes that he cannot conceive what is left for the 4 others. All is so mixed that you learn 40 new trades and 50 new histories in the single chapter. Walpole is sedentary, a stay-at-home, travels by the proxy of books. They are his magic carpets. They carry him to the ends of the earth. I read nothing but American voyages and histories of plantations and settlements, he tells Bentley. But most he loves to read gossiping histories, such as he himself would write, and like all hedonistic readers, the letters of Madame de Sévigné. There is a scarce book in the world I love so much, and after Madame, the gallant Count Grammont, I am the Grammont mad, he tells Montague. Oh, madame, he is now addressing Lady Hervey, what do you think I have found? I am out of my wits. Never was anything like my luck. It never forsakes me. I have found Count Grammont's picture. I believe I shall see company upon it. Certainly keep the holy day. Montesquieu's letters are so agreeable that he cannot go to bed till he has finished them at nearly 3 a.m. Fulk Greville's Maxims and Characters is a wonderful book by a wonderful author. Lord Clarendon's life entertains him more than any book he ever read. Gibbon's Rome lifts him up. Lo, there has just appeared a truly classic work, a history, not majestic like Livy, nor compressed like Tacitus, not stamped with character like Clarendon, perhaps not so deep as Robertson's Scotland, but 1,000 degrees above his Charles, not pointed like Voltaire, but as accurate as he is inexact, modest as he is trenchant, and sly as Montesquieu without being so recherché. The style is smooth as a Flemish picture, muscles concealed, not exaggerated, as in Michelangelo, to exhibit the painter's skill. In anatomy, nor composed of the limbs of clowns of different nations, like Dr. Johnson's heterogeneous monsters. He sits up all night reading Lord Chesterfield's letters to his son, and to his surprise he finds them really written from the heart, not for the honour of the author's head. He thinks they do as little honour to the last as show feeling in the first. His lordship was sensible what a cub he had to work on, and whom 2 quartos of licking could not mould, for cub he remained to his death. He sends Erasmus Darwin's Botanic Garden to Hannah More, extolling the author, a great poet, whose powerful talent has been wasted on descriptions in verse, which have to be explained by essays in prose. Belike she will be surprised at meeting a truffle converted into a nymph, inhabiting a palace studded with emeralds and rubies, like a saloon in the Arabian Nights. He revels in the lives of Leland, Tom Hearne, and Anthony Wood, and thinks it the most delightful book in the world. He is no admirer of Richardson, who wrote those deplorably tedious Lamentations, Clarissa, and Sir Charles Grandison, pictures of high life as conceived by a Methodist teacher. Tristram Shandy is the dregs of nonsense, and a very insipid and tedious performance. Boswell is a jacksnape, his tour a most absurd, enormous book, the story of a mountebank and his zany. And his Life of Dr. Johnson would be more readable were it reduced from 2 volumes to 1, which censors few would support, but we have no cause to complain. Nowt so queer as folks, as they say in my native Lancashire, nothing so amusing as opinions, and in the broad parterres of the garden of books there are blossoms and posies to suit all tastes. So for false fears, as all such objections must be, and all other inconveniences in this kind, not to get excited is best, but to be amused, as he is when Rousseau insists that the north and the south blow at the same time. But I rove. There are many more notable examples of readers who have fluttered from book to book as bees from flower to flower gathering honey, but unlike the bees, for the pleasure of the taste afterwards than for sustenance. And of all the rest I admire most Edward Fitzgerald, who lived for himself, possessed his soul, harmed no man, and died easily, bequeathing by chance, not design, the fragrant memory of a fastidious life among the books and friends, and a set of verses, a bundle of letters, and a dialogue which will ever stand against the dark and times-consuming rage. I am almost of opinion that he was incomparably beyond them all in his exquisite appreciation of books. He read like an artist, idled with genius, and found his visionary inactivity, the mischievous activity of so many he saw about him, if not better than the useful and virtuous activity of a few others. Idleness was the art he professed. He was an amateur in everything else. I have been all my life apprenticed to this heavy business of idleness, and am not yet master of my craft. The gods are too just to suffer that I should. Here I live with tolerable content, he relates, perhaps with as much as most people arrive at, and what if one were grateful, one would perhaps call perfect happiness. Here is a glorious, sunshiny day. All the morning I read about Nero and Tacitus lying at full length on a bench in the gardens, a nightingale singing, and some red amniones eyeing the sun manfully not far off. A funny mixture, all this, Nero and the delicacy of spring. All very human, however. Then at 12:30 I lunch on Cambridge cream cheese, then a ride over hill and dale, then spudding up some weeds from the grass, and then coming in I sit down to write to you, my sister, winding red worsted from the back of the chair, and the most delightful little girl in the world, chattering incessantly. So runs the world away. You think I live in Epicurean ease, but this happens to be a jolly day. One isn't always well or tolerably good. The weather is not always clear, nor nightingale singing, nor Tacitus full of pleasant atrocity. But such is life, I believe. I have got hold of good end of it. And our footnote pointing us to letters and lit. So he idles busily and reads for delight, flying from the grogginess and slag of life as he flew from Carlyle's raving book about heroes, taking refuge in the tale of a tub and Tristram Shandy, Shakespeare and Horace Walpole, Burton's Anatomy, the letters of Madame de Sévigné, Voltaire, and Cervantes. He roves over many pastures, sounds deep seas, takes pleasure even in what he does not wholly understand, just as old women like sermons, which is of a piece with an admiration of all nature around us. So he is able to enjoy the charm and the half-meanings and glimpses of meanings that come in through Blake's wilder visions. His taste is catholic yet fastidious. He will look into any book, taste all with subtle and discriminating palate. Any book is good that notes down facts alone, especially, or rather, any good is book, not any book is good. Any good is book that notes down facts alone, especially about health. That doesn't make sense to me, but he does say any good is book that notes down facts alone, especially about health. He wishes we had diaries of the lives of half the unknown men that have lived. He could not help liking even a cookery book. He sunned himself with Dickens and made a kind of summer in his room with Boccaccio. W.F. Pollock tells him to read Clarendon, and obediently he does so, liking him much. Delightful to read his manly, noble English after Lord Brougham's spick and span, Birmingham ware, in the Edinburgh. He is respectfully astonished at Carlyle, bored by Browning, contemptuous of Mrs. Browning. George Eliot he could not relish at all, but he reads her and the rest of his antipathies for the pleasure of grumbling, dives with as cheerful a complaint into the 5 thick volumes, 500 pages apiece, of the letters of Mrs. Delany. I'm noticing things are looking strangely dark, but it doesn't feel that dark in here. I think it's something with the camera. Didn't quite pick up as the light changed, but I think we're okay now. I jostled it towards the light and back, and now I seem to be fully and properly illuminated again in the light of the window. Where were we? The letters of Mrs. Delany, as he basks appreciatively in the sun of George Crabbe. He toys with the magazines, flirts with the novels from Mudie's, especially A Woman in White, and threatens to make readable that aggravating book, Clarissa Harlowe, with a pair of scissors. But when old age comes upon him, he recoils from making new acquaintances in novels and retreats upon his old friends in Shakespeare, Cervantes, and Sir Walter. In this mode are many. Take William Corey at Eton reading the most sublime thing in literature, Edward Irving's journal, window open, sun burning, a cock crowing on the other side of the street, and to his surprise and delight, Jeff, his Virginian nightingale, begins to sing. What a puddle life is, what an ocean Irving's life was. The Walter Scott world is the best world, the true golden world. He relishes Virgil as the founder of historical romance, the Aeneid being the real forerunner of the Lay of the Last Minstrel. More so of Waverley. He rests with John Henry Newman's poems. Then a new book full of oldness, old sacredness, old mystery, and the romance of theology. He is puzzled while enjoying Victor Hugo's novels. Les Travailleurs de la Mer is very pretty, noble book, if you skip resolutely. The Miserables is a pathological work, almost a synoptic view of human suffering, which he compares with Job, with the Inferno, with Lucretius. But what a fool is Balzac in his jingles. Liberty is peace, Congress is progress. Corey appeals to law books, memoir books, Plato, Butler, to save us from such delusions. Like Fitzgerald and Horace Walpole, he is fastidious, but less Catholic in choice. Balzac leaves a bitter taste in his mind, which is cleansed away by a dose of Octave Fouillette. He realizes his power, but does not praise him, as our fanatics praise Shakespeare, because he has hardly any dramatic skill, a dreadfully heavy hand, bad touch, morbid love of horrors, and insincere admiration of Catholicism and royalism. George Eliot is very noble, wise, sublime, but her human beings don't live with him for life. He is uncertain about Shelley, will only abide him in extracts, but heartily admires Swinburne, abhors Ruskin's rants about economics, and goes steadily, year after year, to his great books. Wilhelm Meister is absolute bosh, and the Epic of Hades below the standard of Eton boys' compositions. Dr. John Brown, the author of Rab and His Friend, does nothing but eat and read. His book fare, Southey's Bunyan and Elixir of the Devil, and the Doctor. Lots of Shakespeare's poems, and the 3rd volume of Carlyle's French Revolution. It is glorious, and now I am regaling myself in Midshipman Easy. And then I mean to have the King's Own. Some retain their hedonism in the midst of household cares, as Dorothy Wordsworth at Grasmere. Sauntered a good deal in the garden, bound carpets, mended old clothes, read Timon of Athens, dried linens, read Boswell in the house in the morning, and after dinner, under the bright light leaves of the orchard. She would soothe her bardic brother with Shakespeare, or with equal delight listen to him reading his own poems hot from creation. She records with a glow how she and William and Mary sat around the fire on Christmas Eve, 1801, reading Chaucer, and with a different and more wistful glow, how one summer's day, June 10th, 1802, Coleridge comes over the hill by Gresdale with a sack full of books, etc., and a branch of mountain ash, the more romantic for having been attacked on the way by a cow, from the Journals of Dorothy Wordsworth. William Cowper was another of our good loiterers. He looked forward to the visit of his dearest cousin, Lady Hexeth, and for the enjoyment of good books and the retreat of his orchard, the best winter walk in all the parish, sheltered from the east and from the northeast, and open to the sun, except at his rising, all the day. Then we will have Homer and Don Quixote, he says, and then we will have saunter and chat and one more laugh before we die. And the delectable orchard is alive with creatures of all kinds, poultry of every denomination, and pigs, the drollest in the world. Maurice Hewlett cherished biography and history. He could pick up and browse happily upon the lives of the poets, as upon the life of a grocer's boy if it were printed. Anybody's life is interesting, he well says, or anybody's letters, but outdated history, as Robertson and Hume, is mainly unreadable. Not so Motley and Prescott, Macaulay, Carlyle, and Michelet, though you need not believe a word they say. He could always read Gibbon until a friend bade him notice how nearly every sentence in him ended with a possessive case. It was truly horrible, or rather horribly true, and killed his pleasure, for henceforward he could read only to find out how true it was, which is not reading, but a dreary game of patience. And our footnote notes exemplary essays. Where are we at? There we go. In such wise have men and women of taste and leisure added richness to their day by entrancing their idle moments with the magic and mystery of illustrious words, and finding in them keys to charm, magic casements open on the foam of perilous sea and fairylands forlorn. Quoting there 2 lines from Keats's Ode to a Nightingale. And discovering also that in such dalliance they are procurers of a sweet content passing all wisdom, or its fairest flower. From R.H. Horne's Orion, those 2 lines. And that brings us to the end of In the Garden of Epicurus. Our next section here is titled The Twilight of the Bibliophile, which is a little bit shorter, about half the length of the section we just read here now. So we'll pop our bookmark in and set this aside until the next video.